Like any For All Mankind season opener, last week's Glasnost had a big job to do setting the scene after the now prerequisite time jump. With that nuts and bolts work out of the way, however, follow-up episode Have a Nice Soul is free to get on with telling its alternative history of the early 21st century, and it does so in spectacular style. Having made his debut last week, series newcomer Toby Kebbell more than justifies his place at second on the cast list, with an excellent performance as Miles Dale. In a show that has, up to now, predominantly focused on heroic astronauts and scientists at the forefront of the space race, the presence of an ordinary guy trying to make ends meet adds an intriguing new dynamic to the show. It's also an excuse to further explore the conflicts between the private and public sectors that fueled much of Season 3. But beyond all that, Have a Nice Soul is a brilliant drama that gets under the surface, quite literally, of the Mars base at Happy Valley and shakes up the status quo for several of the show's core characters. It also finds triumph, albeit small ones, in the most unlikely places. From the Rolling Stones to David Bowie and Nirvana, For All Mankind has always had the knack of picking the right song for the occasion. The opening of Have a Nice Soul plays out to the modern age by The Strokes, and it's the perfect soundtrack to a glorious sequence set in the skies above Mars. With the Unity spacecraft now safely installed in orbit after its 2-month voyage from Earth, we see a landing vessel making a spectacular approach to the Happy Valley base. It's easy to see why Martian first-timer Miles Dale, Toby Kebbell, is recording the occasion on his early Zero's digital camera. But it doesn't take long for the episode to bring everyone back down to Earth. Or, rather, Mars. Palmer James McWatford, Helios's Director of Human Services, performs the necessary briefing/plot exposition, detailing the harsh realities of life on the Red Planet, while pointing out Happy Valley's ATMs and explaining that the Martian day, or sol, is 2.75% longer than Earth's. Residents are given a bespoke watch as part of their welcome pack, and by the time the new recruits take an elevator to their lodgings 3 floors underground, Miles' sense of wide-eyed wonder has turned to palpable trepidation. Understandably so, seeing as the subsequent tour of Happy Valley's extremely unglamorous lower decks feels like a cross between a field trip to the rebooted Battlestar Galactica and the setup for a sci-fi horror movie. Indeed, as James reminds the rookies to remember where emergency equipment is kept, and that the adjacent North Korean compound is strictly out of bounds, you can't help thinking that both pieces of information could prove to be extremely important later in the season. There's further disappointment for Miles when he learns that his 2-year posting to Mars is going to be spent carrying out maintenance on the base, rather than getting out on the Martian surface as a fuel tech. Apparently fuel production is no longer a priority after last week's asteroid incident. A condescending Have a Nice Soul from James is Miles' reward for his protests. When new base commander Danielle Poole, Krez Marshall, and long-serving executive officer Ed Baldwin, Joel Kinnaman, greet each other with the traditional "Hi Bob" catchphrase from their days on the moon decades earlier, the contrast couldn't be starker. The ingenious split-screen sequence that follows is the highlight of the episode, tracking Poole and Miles going through their very different day-to-day routines at Happy Valley before seamlessly bringing them together in a single elevator shot. While Poole lives in palatial quarters, gets coffee brought to her, and has the ear of everyone on the base, Miles is forced to live on a loose approximation of food, is ignored by the people he works for, and, perhaps worst of all, realizes that the internet signal in his room won't allow him to watch video messages from his family. Back on Earth, Ed's exobiologist daughter Kelly, Cynthia Wu, demonstrates Spot, a prototype robot designed to locate microbial life on Mars. NASA boss Eli Hobson, Daniel Stern, seems suitably impressed with her team's remarkable work, but cementing his reputation as a budget slasher, he tells her there's no money to spend on scientific research like hers. At least the cash well will remain dry until the asteroid capture program is back up and running. No bucks, no Buck Rogers, Kelly surmises. She's unlikely to look for any advice from her old man, seeing as she's yet to acknowledge his message tell her he's not coming back from Mars anytime soon. This episode confirms that Ed hasn't been to Earth in 8 years, not since his ex-wife, Karen, died in the Johnson Space Center bombing and strongly implies that he has little intention of ever doing so.